Good morning, everyone, and welcome to April 27th. More snow in Ottawa. So, wherever you are, if you don't have snow, just think that the Canadian National Capital is actually a hardship posting for foreign affairs, all right, because of our weather. So, we're going to move past that. Now, I said last week we were going to talk more about perfectionism and procrastination. Uh, we've done a podcast in the past, but we're going to do a refresher in many ways because many people have communicated with me to say that they're stuck. They Even though they want to, they really are having a lot of difficulty getting started, and once getting started, staying started. Okay? So, yes, Nora. Oh no, snow. Thank you for the condolences. We do appreciate it. We're long suffering people north of you. Um, all right. So, um, as we talked about in the past, all right, I thought it might be a really important thing to look at what procrastination actually is. Procrastination, as I've told you in the past, is a state of mind that frankly has been given an unfair um, assessment. It's been associated with the failure to do something. Somehow you're lazy and you put things off, or you're not really serious and you're a procrastinator. In actual fact, today I want to handle the material that I hope really makes you realize that procrastination is not the failure to do something. Procrastination is um, the underpinnings of it are different basic fundamental roots of our personality, of our life experience, and that really it is quite often an unconscious or subconscious choice, but it actually is a choice we do make, often not actively, passively, without really being aware, um, to avoid, to make a choice that avoids something that is even scarier, even worse for us. And so we do it. We procrastinate in some way. So I want to talk a little bit about the different basic roots, like a tree, where this behavior is rooted. And I want you to reflect in your own lives, in your own experience, where um, inner feelings are the deepest feelings we have produce a sense of being overwhelmed or um, incapable, not ready, not able to figure out of the choices and the options that we see, um, what the best option to choose is. And so there I want you to go back to the three basic questions because they will always keep you in the here and now. They will also be a solid, reliable foundation for what do you need to do right now? What can you do? What is possible? And those three questions are all together now. What do I need right now? Where is it? And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference? All right. And when you deal just with the here and now by asking yourself those questions, your current applicable deepest experience, deepest feelings are generally going to demand the forefront. That's a really good way to bring yourself into the here and now, not in the history, not in the future, not in something that hasn't arrived or is past, it's over. right the here and now right now, because the here and now and dealing with it is the only thing we have, people. All right? We only have the here and now. We can plan the future. We can set goals for the future, and we do need to do that because you can't hit a target that you can't imagine. All right? But what are you feeling right now? And among those feelings, are there any fears? Are there fears presently? Does it feel safe right now to move forward, to act, to make a big choice or a small choice? Are there fears that dog you from the past? I never was very good at that. Important people in my life told me, you'll never amount to anything. That is not a talent you have. You're insufficient, you're wrong, you're whatever the negative word is. Are you carrying those with you? And if you are, they probably weren't true then, all right? And they certainly aren't true now if you're here with me today trying to make a difference moving forward, all right? And there is no perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. You're not perfect. So we need to get off our own backs and out of our own way. All right? All right. Are there memories? Is there something that would be disruptive in the way of a memory? While you're having that memory, is it possible then, if that's kind of where you are right now, reminiscing, that you might be able to access a positive memory, an affirming memory, a forgiving memory, if it's leaving you feel deficient? Dreams. What do you dream of? What do you want for the future? All right. What do you want for the future? Because the truth, I believe, is if it wasn't capable for you to reach that future, it wouldn't come to your mind. All right. And if it did, it wouldn't stay long enough for you to really hold on to, for you to really invest. So if it's reclaiming a life, or it's changing your life, or it's anything at all that is healthy for you, if you can dream it, you can probably do it. Right now, I want you to take a pen, and I want you to take that pad of paper, and I want you to write down 3 doubts that you have right now about something that you're setting a goal, an important goal for yourself, or you have been setting that goal. I want you to write down 3 doubts. If you don't have 3, that's great. But whatever doubts you have, up to 3, would you write them down and send them to me, either in a private message in the chat box, or in an open one to everyone. We are a community, and we make friends, we make contacts here. That's fine. And then I will look at those. So I have 5 right now. I'm hoping that people will share 3 doubts that they have about their ability to move forward. All right. The other thing, context is everything. All right. Context is everything. I happen to believe that there is nothing completely true or completely false out of its context. So what are the pressures that you're under right now? All right. You have to factor those in, because those are part of right now. It could be physical illness. It could be emotional struggles. It could be family problems. It could be anything. What are the pressures that you are dealing with right now that you need to factor in? All right? Okay. Okay. How many people here are prepared to accept that they're procrastinating, their procrastination behavior, I won't even call it a habit, they get it now. It actually is a strategy, unconscious perhaps, not deliberate, to avoid uncomfortable feelings. How many hands up? If you see that, you get it. It's not a fault. It is not a fault. It is not an inadequacy. It is not a lack of. It is simply that there's something worse. There's something bigger, something that feels uncomfortable, and you're not ready for it. And so right now, right here, paused in procrastination looks like your best choice. Highest probability, people, is that's true. Highest probability is that's true. Now, how many people here, you can put hands up if you can't see each other, or you can send me it in a chat, can see that when I procrastinate, in part, it helps me deal with feelings about myself, that there are some basic ways that I'm unacceptable or inadequate. I like to say, at a minimum, not enough. How many people find that that's what comes to mind? I'm just not enough for this situation. Now that can be because I don't have the information I need. Watch out if the only acceptable information is perfect, complete, absolutely irrefutable information, because that is also not just not likely that you can ever, there will never be enough. So maybe I don't have the resources. Maybe I don't have the garbage bags. Maybe I don't have the whatever. Maybe in some way my not enough is maybe I'm feeling I have a physical inability to carry out whatever is part of the dream, the image that I have for what I want to accomplish. How many people have done that, found themselves just not up to the task personally, all right? And then, as a result of that, have engaged in self-criticism or self-blame? How many people? Hands up. So you make it, you see how by not stepping out of yourself, being an objective, independent observer of oneself. We all have to do that. All right? I have to do it regularly. You have to do it. I'm really encouraging you. It works. Rather than undermine yourself with self-doubt and self-criticism. And heaven forbid you turn the volume up on the committee and you get, those voices from the past that say, you're right, you really are, oh my gosh, you never were, and grind on you. All right? Turn the volume down. Don't listen, and for heaven's sakes, don't voice over mean things that were probably truer about the person who said them in the past than they ever were about you. All right? Now, we need 3 parts of ourselves to get ready. We need to do an inventory of physically, how capable, how able are we to do what needs to be done physically, all right, to meet that goal. And if you're not physically able, then you're going to need a buddy, or you're going to need someone to help you professionally, one or the other. All right? if there really are some physical blockages, some barriers, you're going to need help. To keep banging your head against a stone wall and blaming yourself for not achieving when it isn't a one-person job. Maybe for other people, but if there's a physical impediment, you got to accept reality. When you step outside the situation and you look at it, a good way to do that, it's very simple really, is to put yourself in the mindset of a friend, looking at someone who is like you in the predicament you're in. What would you tell them? Tell yourself that. Be your own best friend. You're capable of that. This does not have to be a mystery. All right? If you're smart enough to join me on Zoom, you've got what it takes, okay? That is not necessarily an easy process. All right? You can do this. Now, the other thing you need to factor in, and this is unique to each one of us, mentally, all right? Are you dealing with an alternate way that your brain works because of the uniqueness of the structure, the functional structure of your brain? Do you have chronic depression? Do you have chronic anxiety? I'm talking genetically. I'm not talking reactively, all right? That's also important. But genetically, is this something that you have to deal with? You have to factor that in. It might slow down the pace, but it might also mean that there are other aids that you need. One of the aids, please say a prayer that we can do this, all right? I have developed a message that I'm preparing to send to Dr. Gabor Mate, who is a very, very well-known physician who deals with addiction. He deals with ADD and ADHD brains, and I'm going to try to convince him, God's willing, to be a guest on our podcast. So you could all send him an email. Go to his website and say, please pick up Elaine Birchall's email to you. Please answer, blah, 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 blah. We're dying to have you. If he gets 51 of those, maybe he'll listen. Maybe we could influence him. Get what you need. What do I need? Where is it? How do I get enough of it to make it enough of a difference? The other thing we have to factor in is our genetics. All right? Genetically, for instance, if I had to do something that was above 5 feet 4 inches, 6 inches tall, it's not happening. All right? I have never genetically ever been able to reach beyond the first row on the second shelf. It's not happening. If my back is out and I'm not able to be standing on a ladder, I'm going to have to rethink that plan. If the plan requires repeated bending and lifting, all right, I'm going to have to rethink that plan. What do I need? What I use one of those medical grippers, all right, and pick things up that way. What do you need genetically? What do you need? Are there any genetic factors that result in you assessing that what you're trying to do is beyond you? It's taking too much time, too much effort. Because the reason I'm going through those roots, people, is to let you know that this is a system. This is a system plan that you need to problem solve in order to start working deliberately and consistently on that goal that you've written down. It's not just a matter of, I'm not motivated. where are the seepages? Are they in your body function? Is that something that exacts too high a cost? How do you compensate? Is it all of the chemicals, what you're saying to yourself, the memories, the lack of confidence? That's interesting. That is interesting as a thought. However, every single one of the things we tell ourselves, good, bad, and indifferent, create a stew of chemicals, hormones that get sent to the brain. And whatever the brain receives in whatever combinations is a major factor in that motivation. It will either energize you or it'll suck the energy right out of you and get you put back on the couch. So be really, really, really vigilant. All right, really edit the things you tell yourself, particularly when they're negative and disabling or critical. No self-blame. All right, nobody on this earth ever overcame something difficult that was difficult for them, all right, by feeling less about themselves, by bullying themselves, by blaming themselves. All right, that is just not a recipe for success, because what you send to your brain will influence whether you avoid or whether you don't. The other thing that is a factor there as well is the pace. What is your unique pace? Now, if you're the ever ready bunny, all right, and you go brrr, you're faster than greased lightning, that's your pace. But if you are a one at a time individual, because that's the best you can manage right now, you'll be surprised what you can accomplish one small thing at a time. The other thing I had an experience this week with someone, and it was interesting. So I just want to kind of give you a heads up. When you're trying to clear space, don't start with the biggies. All right, pick an area that is aggravating you the most. Yeah, that's good. But start with the small things. Pick a starting point on a wall and work your way around systematically, putting your hand on one thing at a time. Pick it up, deal with one thing at a time. You'll get there. And pace yourself. All right? Pace yourself. Don't overdo it. Don't underdo it. Pace yourself. And when you come to something that is a habit, all right? It's the way you store things, but it's occupying space and it contains contents that go with something else you have, where you have dedicated space. An example might be books, all right, or journals, or writing paper, or products, people who do crafts, for instance, or are artistic. Take those things and put them with the storage of like type things, and don't fuss about the way you're used to storing it, because when you get to the big stuff, you're going to need to have free space. And the way you free up the space isn't by tackling the big stuff first. It's by tackling things consistently and deliberately, one thing at a time. All right? Be really, really careful you don't disable yourself by getting locked into old ideas. Well, I'm used to this and I like this, and well, old ideas Old methods are going to result in old results. All right? Challenge yourself to think differently, put like type things together, particularly when there is available space in something that is a dedicated storage space already. It could be shelving, it could be a bookcase, it could be a cupboard. Like things with like things, all right? And one at a time. Don't get frustrated. You will get there. You'll be surprised how quickly. All right. So, all right. The other thing I don't think we've ever talked about, just to raise the importance of the chemicals, the hormones, and being really careful about what we send to our brain. All right. Is it cortisol? Is it dopamine? Is it serotonin? Makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. All right. And the reason it makes a big difference is because whatever we send the most, neurologically, can affect the development, even as adults, the structure and function of our brain. So be really, really careful with all of that disabled negative thinking. All right. Every time you send a little boost of cortisol or whatever the more negative hormone is, every time you do that, you're habituating it. And you can change the structure and function of your brain. All right. Now, the great thing is that by being vigilant about avoiding doing that, giving yourself an alternate truthful thought, yet I think last week I told you my story of the Cheese Whiz that was on the handle of the door when I went to get something out of the cupboard, and I went, oh, who put the Cheese Whiz on the cupboard? Oh. And then I thought, well, if the Cheese Whiz is on that cupboard, it means somebody gave the dogs their pills. And I didn't have to do that, and I didn't have to remember that. So you know what? It went from a to a, Cheese Whiz, wiping a little bit of Cheese Whiz isn't the worst thing to happen. This happens in little ways. Watch your little ways. Whatever we do the most, wherever we go the easiest, that's what we habituate. There's good news, however, but it is not easy good news. Breaking a bad habit, all right, that is familiar to us. When we've habituated, it is harder to do, but we can change. We can change that. Our brains can change back. It's called neuroplasticity, all right? So let's get started changing it. How are you doing with the voices on the committee? That life history, family history dynamics. How many people find that that is still something that just rapidly comes to mind and you have to deal with? Hands up. I'll look up. Okay. All right. How many people feel that it's time to kind of tackle that? Anybody? All right. Here's a really easier ways to do it. The first is get a chair, sit in a chair, look at the other chair, and imagine the person or the people. You can have a few chairs if you want. Have your own, call your own committee meeting, okay? Only you're the chair this time, okay? And let's have a talk with those people. Let's tell them, all right, what the effect was on you and that you're still carrying it this time later, and that there is no reason why you should. Nothing you could possibly do is worth having that kind of weight, that kind of pain, that kind of sadness, that kind of guilt, insecurity. You give it your word. Nothing you could possibly have done is worth carrying that for this long. All right? And they were wrong. they were wrong. They judged you, they hurt you, they criticized you, they made you the brunt of their bad mood or their challenges, the load they were carrying, they offloaded it on you as a kid. And you know what? They didn't have the right to do that. It was never true. They were working on inadequate information. Shame on them. And you're giving it back to them. You're giving it back to them. All right? That's one way. Another way is to do the same thing but write a letter. All right? A third way, and this is a user-friendly way, all right, is every time you have that thought, just carry a little pad with you, all right? Write down one word, what that feeling is. Write down the name of the person associated with it. Rip off the sheet, scrunch it up, throw it in the garbage. All right? Every time you're aware that you're being intruded upon by memories, by judgment, by family dynamics, pick one of those three ways. They do work. They really do work. All right. Who are you today? Find your place in your own, I'm going to say culture, so your own context. All right? You be the captain, because if you want to get somewhere, if you want to achieve something, if you want to get started, it's sort of like a boat, all right? And the seas can be a little choppy. We know that. Life sends us stuff. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, stuff that isn't even ours, all right? I know that I'm heavily influenced. I'm going to have to really mitigate watching the horrors of what's happening in the Ukraine, because it affects my daily life. That doesn't help them, and it sure doesn't help me. So if something is intruding on your life like that, all right, be the captain of your own destiny. And you do that by what you tell yourself, because whatever you send to your brain is what your brain sends back to you. All right? And that is command central. You want your executive functions to work for you, that frontal part of your brain. You want that goal to be doable. You want it to be breakdownable into baby steps. You're in charge of that. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. All of this stuff, this legacy stuff, negative legacy stuff, all right? All of that is in the past. And what we say to ourselves now determines the next step we can take. All right. So we blew it. So we made a mistake. So when we look at a situation, our own assessment of it is, we could have done better. We know, legitimately, all right? Legitimately, we could have done better. Okay. You're better to accept it than deny it. Because whatever the truth is, repeating that, procrastinating, making excuses for ourselves, making it about the past, making it about something beyond our control, means that you are overloading the choice to repeat the limiting behavior. Do you see it? Do you see how much in control we actually are? Now, it requires one thing of us. Two things, really. It requires us to remain in the present. All right? If our mind is drifting, if we're not in the present, mindful, which is why we did that podcast a few podcasts ago. Go back and listen to it. Remain in the present, mindful, right now. Pinch yourself. Feel it. That's where you are. All right. What you tell yourself there is what's going to determine what you are capable of in the next step. Because you can't do it if you can't see it. And you know what? If you're looking back there to the old history and the committee and the whatever, and you're letting them in, they're driving the bus. You're not driving the bus. All right? Stay in the present. Do whatever you have to do to stay in the present. Now, we're going to talk a little about even being in the present, a few fears. Now, next week, we're going to go through this in more detail. We're going to kind of open the envelopes. But these things actually, these fears actually do exist. And it's important. Okay, hold on a sec. Braden, you're going to have to edit. I guess I need more volume. How do I do that? Hold on, people. Well, does that help? Is it too loud? Okay, good. Sorry, people. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Okay, the things we don't know. Okay. Is there any chance that being successful is too risky? What would it cost you to be successful? Are you feeling up to it? Are you feeling that it would put you in jeopardy? Would demand too much of you? It would be something that is sort of like writing a book. I had that a little bit of that experience when Sue and I wrote Conquer the Clutter, and we finished it after 6.5 years. And then we thought, when our editor contacted me and said, how about another book? How about a therapist guide? And I thought, another 6.5 years to write another book. So it can happen, and it sounds contradictory. We're going to peel the lid off that next week. This one's easier, fear of failure. Now, you would think that if we had, at anywhere, at any part of ourselves, if we had a fear of failure, you would think that that would make us do better, right? And it can actually bring us to a grinding halt, all right? Because if I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of risk. If I'm afraid of risk, I'm afraid of trying. All right? Is there any element of that in what's holding you back? All right? Is there any element of that? This is a biggie. This one, I have encountered so much of this in the last, I don't know what it is, the coming out of COVID or whatever. All right, a fear of being controlled. Nobody likes to be told what they should do. Nobody does. But does it get converted into a sense of you losing your autonomy? Your right to choose, your right to have your own way, your right. Does it? All right, so what? So you put the brakes on at the first sign of anybody having an opinion or giving you feedback, and you resist? What would happen if you just put yourself on pause? You're adults. You don't have to do anything. But do yourself a favor, because if you only have your own thinking patterns and your own ideas, where have they led you? All right? They can only produce old results. Be a sponge. Observe. Listen. Listen. two ideas. You don't have to adopt them. You can take them and you can change them. An example of that this week was working with someone to reclaim a room for a particular purpose. And there was a box, and the box contained something. It didn't have to contain that. That's the way I saw it. We would take those things and put them with other things on a bookshelf. But the person was really, really adamant that that was the box that needed to be in. And so I thought, this is your life. This is your choice. So I said, so the goal here, if we back up, is to free up that space so that we can reorganize this room. All right, so the box is occupying space. I personally think taking the books out and putting them on the shelf would be the way to go. But I'm hearing you say that doesn't work for you. Okay, what does work for you? Because we need that space. She said, well, I'll take the box and I'll put the box on the shelf. And as it turned out, the box would fit on the shelf. Are there alternate ways that you can take feedback and advice that you're not welcoming, rather than to resist it and slam the door? Can you take that and tweak it in your own way, in a way that works for you uniquely? New ideas give you a chance. New strategies, new approaches, new ways of thinking about things give you an opportunity to change the outcome the way you want it to be. It's not. When you resist, all right, opinion, and you resist it, whoever you were in a relationship with that resulted in that kind of defensive move in you is still driving the bus. They're still in control because you're not responding, you're reacting. Okay, and in reacting, they're still driving the bus. You are giving them control by doing that. Put yourself on pause, remain open, you're not committed, you will consider, pick the parts you think will work for you the best, try them, create your own unique solution. Fear of intimacy. We're not talking about sexual relations here. We're talking about feeling safe enough to be authentically you. All right? To be able to have your opinions, to have your feelings, to share them, to help others with their struggles, and allow others who have proven themselves. You don't give away trust, you earn trust. All right? To help you with your struggles. And little by little, test by test, proof by proof, establish intimate relationships. We are always better when we don't feel like we're alone on the desert island. All right? We're always better. Look what COVID did to us. If we need to prove it any more than that, look what COVID did to us. All right? Fear of separation, a fear of being alone. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. We came into this world alone and we'll leave it alone. All right? We are generally extroverts, introverts, have a different threshold for need, but don't test your relationships so strenuously. When I said trust is earned, it has to be a reasonable amount of earned. All right, don't test your relationships so extremely that no limited person, no imperfect person um, could possibly reach that level. Now the next thing we're going to wind up on this is, and this is huge. All right, this is really huge. It's our relationship to time. I alluded to it last week. A relationship to time is, all right, do you operate on wishful thinking time? All right, do you make time the enemy? Do you work around it by making excuses and apologies when you're late or you don't show up or whatever? Do you deny the importance of being on time? Of understanding that when I tell myself that this is going to take me 15 minutes to do, and I found out later that it actually took me 2 days to complete it, do I keep telling myself the same thing? Or do I make myself responsible for what is the evidence telling me? What is the evidence telling me? Guess what? That is never going to work. And am I willing or do I feel controlled? All right. Do I think, you know what, I don't want to accept. I want to just free flow. And when I get there, I get there. What's the consequence of that? You can't blame others for reasonable consequences. All right? All right. Is your subjective time in conflict? Your perception of time? Do you focus so much, even ADD and ADHD, focus so much on something that nothing else exists? Later on, maybe next week, definitely the week after, we're going to be talking about strategies to compensate. All right? Because when we have a subjective, wishful thinking relationship with time, and it is not consistent with what the clock is telling us and everybody else who's part of that experience, all right, we make it a problem. We make it a problem to anticipate deadlines. Sometimes we also send messages to the others that somehow they're not as important because I'll just get there whenever I'm going to get there. All right. And that's their perception. All right. Your boss, for instance, at work or friends, they will have their response to that. And there may be a consequence. All right. You'll have problems anticipating deadlines. You will have problems at the other end of the spectrum as well if it's wishful thinking, subjective time, not clock time. Working steadily toward your goals. There you are, people. All right, there you are. Anybody who said they can't get started, they're not motivated, I want you to look at your relationship with time and how in sync it is and how out of sync it is. All right? It will probably, if you just operate on your own time system, your own time perception, it is definitely going to make it very, very difficult for you to predict how much time a job will actually take. So how do you know then how much of your precious time and energy and resources you need to have in order to do a job? Does that mean you're setting yourself up to always end on a negative? And it will cause relationship conflicts. All right? Does this constant back and forth between what the clock says and you say and your experience, trying to live with that contradiction, does it result in you avoiding? Does it result in you procrastinating? Could be. Could be. Now we've got 66 messages in the chat box. So let's move to the chat box. All right. Nora gives condolences. Oh no, so sorry for the snow. Oh, you got snow in North Bay as well. Leslie, to everyone, I just realized that yes, I can make choices. I don't want to. S. Yes, you can. Good. That's a big step forward. So when you ask yourself, I know I can make choices. I don't want to make those choices, or I don't want to make choices right now. Stop and ask yourself, right now, then, this is the time for the decision. This is the time for the choice, right? What do I need right now? What do I need instead of that choice? Where is it? How do I get enough of that to make enough of a difference? You guys are going to be sick of me repeating that. And the other side of that coin is, because there is a coin always like this, the teeter-totter, right? Action, consequence. And am I prepared to pay the consequence? Is the consequence of not making the choice? Could I mitigate the choice if the choice just seems like, oh, more than I can manage right now? Like, really, I don't want to. I want to break. Okay. Can I mitigate the choice, move forward a little bit, and make a dent in whatever that choice is associated with? I don't have to do the whole ball of wax. That's the all or nothing thinking. Because particularly, and we're going to end on this, particularly when I look at making that choice to perform that act, it's not worth doing if it's not worth doing right. And what would the committee say? All right, what would the committee say? And have I voiced over the voices on the committee? Okay, so next, it carries with you, Leslie and Sarah. Yes, fear stops me. Sarah, either in an email to me, or if you're open to it, um, in the chat box a little later on. We probably won't come to it in time, but could you let us know, or me know separately, privately, what the fear or fears are? Okay, because fear is like um, a big cube, but inside the fear are little compartments. All right. Okay. Nora, doubts that I will lose momentum and backslide. Nora, how does doubts, are you saying that you stop and you procrastinate out of doubts that you'll be able to keep going, and then keeping going and achieving something, you'll be able to maintain that so you don't start? Is that what you're saying? Nora, are you there? Can you open your mic and just answer that? Where'd Nora go?
I'm here. Yeah, it's more like I had a sinus infection, so I was really sick, so I stopped doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's really, really, really hard to start again.
Yeah. The bad news on that is that that's normal. All right.
Yeah.
The bad news on it is that that's normal. If you're not a get up and go kind of whatever's in front of me, an A type personality, if you're not a real A type personality, and there's nothing wrong if you're not, anybody, um, the restarting, particularly when it was a challenge in the first place, that is tough. Acknowledge yourself. My suggestion would be whatever you think you need to do that first day, ramp it back by 4. All right, break it down into 4 pieces, that goal,
Okay.
and just do the first one and be satisfied, because the hardest part is always starting. And
Yes.
it almost doesn't matter what you're starting at. All right? That
Yep.
is, I'm not sure that isn't just human nature. So but you do know you need to get started because you've accomplished a lot.
Yep.
And so you know you've got the skill, you know you've got the ability. What you don't have right now is the momentum. All
Exactly.
right. And once you start, you know that people, right? But so many people tell me, gosh, I was going to do 15 minutes and 2 hours later, I thought to myself, I don't know what the problem is here. Once I get started, it's fine. The momentum carries you. You have to be careful with that, though, even with the momentum, because however you finish, whatever state of mind you're in when you finish, physically and mentally, if the next time you think about starting, it isn't going to be that much easier. It isn't. All right. That is going to be the association you have in your head, and nobody wants to go back to something that was an insurmountable mountain and drudge. Nobody in their right mind wants to do that. So, really manage the balance of the getting started and the keeping going through momentum. All right, manage
Okay.
it. You always want to come out of it with spare left over so that you've got something for the other goals that you're supposed to be following.
Right.
Joy, fun, play, being a learning, growing, developing human being, and being glad to be alive on this earth on this day. Those are also important. They don't come first; they come equal. And going to really end on this one because somebody asked me, Elaine, please stay to the hour. That's all I can pay attention to. Okay, and so the thing about stopping is knowing that the next time you go to get started, it's going to be a challenge.
Yes.
It is going to be a challenge. All right. And so you pace yourself. You take a chunk and you do the small chunk. And that will then prime the pump. A few times after that, you probably will be back in your stride. All
Oh,
right.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. So, we got 15 new questions. 3 doubts I have about myself. Okay. Joan, send that um, in um, in an email to me, or is it later on in the chat? All right, Kylie. Um, you know what? So, who here will spend 5 minutes? We won't listen to that person. Um, who here believes that on any, I'm not talking life changing, all right, situation. I'm talking just normal day to day work that we have to do. Who believes there is a right choice and a wrong choice? I see no hands. Thank oh, 1, 2. Okay. Again, hands up if you do believe that there actually is a right choice and a wrong choice. Okay. All right. Can I give you a thought to try this week? When you're thinking about something, all right, now it is not a life changing situation, whether to have surgery or not have surgery, whether to take your doctor's advice or not take your doctor's advice. Um, Ask yourself, if I didn't make that choice, what choice am I comfortable with? What choice am I comfortable with? Sort of similar, kind of in that direction. What choice am I? And start with that. Nothing says that in making a choice you have to commit to the whole hog. All right? You don't. You don't have to commit to the whole thing. Break it down. What choice related to this issue am I comfortable making? And that's going to tell you, are you on the right path or not? It's going to buy you some time. It's going to buy you the ability to assess. almost any choice beats no choice, because I think that there are and if you agree with me, hands up, there are so few things in life that it really matters that they're done one correct way. Okay? Because, why? Because most of them are reversible and repairable. So, what one small choice can I make that moves me in the direction I want to go, I think I should go, I need to go on this topic? Okay, and next week we're going to talk about the profile of people who procrastinate, or the state of mind you're in when you procrastinate. All right. Okay. Let me just see if I can have a little fun with this. All right. Give me 5 minutes. I just can hardly wait to go through the procrastinator's mantra. So I'll start early this time. Okay. Oh, I've got to start soon. Oop. What if I don't start? Oop. I really should have started sooner. Oop. What do I need? I'm feeling a little anxious here because we're getting right down to it. Oh. There must be something out there that I could eat, drink, do, call a friend, go on Facebook, Netflix, YouTube. There has to be something. Oh, gaming. Gaming's good. All right. Whatever it is, it's a distraction. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. I feel a lot better. I really feel a lot better now that I've spent my time doing something that distracts me. All right. Oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when this thing isn't done? What's going to happen when the deadline's over? There isn't much, but there still is time. So you persist in denial and the illusion there still is time to get the project done, hoping that a magical reprieve might come your way, the magic fairy. And of course it doesn't, because there isn't one, right? And then what do? You turn on yourself. You turn on yourself. There's something wrong with me. Now you're desperate. And the final choice is to do or not to do. The only problem is you've used up the time. And so, can you be surprised that your best choice is to rationalize something and procrastinate? The only thing is that gets you right back to the very beginning. Okay, when you say, next time, I'll start early this time. Because whatever we do the most is what we habituate, and what we send to the brain, our brain, which is command central, to help us do what we need to do differently. You gotta use the right fuel. It's like putting gas in a diesel engine to do that. It's never gonna get you there. Okay, so this week, watch your relationship with time. If you could think about, are there fears? Are there memories? Are there patterns of behavior? Are there obstacles? And what is your relationship with time? Is that where you're running amok? Okay? We will see you next week, everybody. Thanks for being here. Take